really, really interesting today. I'm excited. I'm like super pumped to be doing this. I'm also nervous because I have no idea what Mark is going to ask. Now, in full disclosure, I asked him to please put the question that he's asking me up in front of me at that time.
And I told you no.
So I do know the first question just because it's like right behind the camera, but I have no idea what the other questions are. That's by design. We're just going to keep this kind of informal and whatnot. So quick backstory. Had an opportunity to spend 4 days at a place called Blackberry Farm. Just Google it. You guys will see just how amazing this place is. It's a place that's won pretty much every award you can imagine for customer service, for food, for hospitality. It's unreal place. And I got to hear the story of how this how this came about. Like years ago when Michael Hyatt started his affiliate program for 5 days to your best year ever, he and Stu McLaren, who you've heard a lot about the last few days, Megan and Stu were having lunch or something, talking about prizes. And Megan just said, I want it to be something that's not, the everyday prizes. I don't want it to be cash. I don't want it to be whatever. Michael wants it to be an experience. And so they made it into an experience. All right. And so we have a podcast series. We had a 12 episode podcast series. Mark can drop the link to that if he hasn't already. And hey, Phil, and hey, Nicole. And so, by the way, if you guys are jumping on, we can't see you unless you let us know. So drop a comment, say hi, tell us where you're joining us from, all that stuff. Ask questions as we go along, all that stuff. But just want to be able to say hi to you as we're on here live. And so the top affiliates for Michael, the top 3 affiliates, got to go to Blackberry Farm, and so that's how we ended up there. So we did this 12 episode series on the podcast. Mark dropped the link. It's mattmcwilliams.com/Blackberry. And just to the takeaways, the things that I learned. I mean, hanging out with Jeff Walker, Amy Porterfield, and Michael Hyatt and their spouses and stuff, you'll learn a lot. And I certainly did. And it was just, it was one of the episodes is called It's My Mountaintop Experience. And I literally was on the top of Walker Mountain, ironically. And just had an amazing time, amazing stuff. And so what we wanted to do today was, yes, we did the podcast series, and that was like the takeaways, the business and, whatnot takeaways. We wanted to take it kind of a layer deeper because that was just me, sitting there with my notes and talking about what I got out of this trip and, all the things that I got. We want to take it a step further. So Mark's going to interview me today and ask me a bunch of questions that I don't know. So, hey, Heather. And so we'll see. Like, let's just jump into it, Mark, and ask these questions.
And see, Matt, this is cool for me because the minute you came back,
we've never done this, by the way.
We have not, and we should do it more often. No, one of the things that's exciting to me is the minute you came back. I mean, the first Monday you were back, we didn't talk the whole week. You were gone, obviously. And so you got back and I'm like, okay, so tell me about it. And you'd done your whole Zeigarnik open loop thing and said, remind me to tell you what Chad Cannon said. And I'm like, all right, fine. What did Chad Cannon say?
I could have told you in a text, but that would it wasn't as cool. Like, I know because I think I said it's about you, didn't I?
You did. Yeah.
All right. No, so don't forget to ask me about that because I did not cover that. That's actually a really good topic of conversation, by the way, guys, is what Chad Cannon, that's Michael Hyatt's CMO, said about Mark at lunch one day. It was like a really, I don't know, life-changing moment for me, which is kind of weird because he said it about Mark, but you'll see why. And don't forget to ask me about that. Please ask me about that later. But yeah, this is the first time we've ever done this interview. So one thing I'll ask you guys, if we get through this unscathed and you guys like this format, you like this where Mark's interviewing me, let us know and we'll make sure we work these into the calendar more frequently. All right, so back to what you were saying. Yeah, so I just gotta say that was so cool because like I texted Mark, I'm like, dude, do you want me to tell you what Chad Cannon said? He's like, what? And I was like, it's about you.
Never mind.
For like 5 days. That happened on Tuesday at lunch. So for 6 days, Mark has no idea what Chad said about him. good or bad. I think I may have said it was good. Don't worry.
Yeah, you did tell me it was good.
But still, did he say, I like Mark's haircut?
Right.
You know, man, Mark just, really has a great, what did he say? Hey, Tammy, one of our new starters, one of our new Start Mastermind members.
Can I just say before we jump in, Tammy, I like Tammy. She was so much fun yesterday. Like, yeah, we were talking. I mean, there's a cone of silence, so I'm not going to really say a ton of what was talked about. But good. One of the things that Tammy said that I thought was awesome is she's just like, I've done a lot of things in my life, and I just want to have fun. And I'm like, hey, we're going to get along great. I like having fun too.
Love it. So hi, Tammy.
All right. So yeah, so we talked, and you shared a ton of stuff, and so some of the questions, Matt, I think might not even, you may have mentioned it in a podcast episode, but it came more from the conversations we had because you shared some really cool stuff as well. But the first thing I wanted to ask you was, and you even mentioned it in the introduction here, is you referred, as I was listening back through all these episodes, you referred to this as a mountaintop experience for you several times. So you may have mentioned it in a podcast. Why is that? And turn me off so I don't hear me in the background. Jeez Louise.
I'm trying to respond and win.
Yeah. So, I mean, why was this such a mountaintop experience for you? And what do you mean by that?
Well, it was a bit of play on words because I literally recorded a podcast episode about 80% down a mountain and called Walker Mountain, which is fun. It's like day 3 of spending, 4 days with Jeff Walker. And then there's like 3 mountains you can climb at Blackberry Farm, and one of them is Walker Mountain. And we chose that because we only had like an hour and 45 minutes, and it was the lowest one. And so we chose that because otherwise we would never have made dinner that night. And so we climbed up to the top of Walker Mountain. Actually, I didn't post this picture. I wish I had my phone on me. I could show you guys. So we climb up and we're coming down, and I remember like standing at the top. Well, I take that back. What I thought was the top of the mountain. It turns out there's another 200 feet because it like you go up to the top and then you go like it levels off and you go around for a while. And it's kind of like you're going to come back and then go a bit down. And no, you go up another 200 feet. And I'm like, oh, crap. And there's a yoga platform at this point. So it's like, it makes sense. If there's this yoga platform, you would do that at the top of the mountain, not 200 feet before the top of the mountain. Right. And so anyway, I get up there and this spot opens up. Like it's just trees, nothing but trees, and trees. Right. And then no joke, the width of like maybe 2 big screen. I've got a big screen TV on the other side of this where I'm seeing everything. 2 of those, it is like 8 feet wide. That's it. 8 feet wide. There's this opening and it looks right down the property. So you look over the lake, you look over the barns, you see the inns in the background. You can see some of the homes that are on the property, and you see the horses down below, and it is just beautiful. And so I stopped and I asked Tara about it, and she's like, no, I never saw it because she kept going. But I'm like, fiddle farting around behind her, like, oh, pictures, like I'm taking pictures of everything. Like I got pictures of like pine cones, and I take this picture of this spot, and I'm sitting there at dinner next to Jeff that night. And he's like, yeah, there's this spot when you get up on Walker Mountain. And he's like, I took a picture of it. And I'm like, wait a minute. Was it this one? And we're like, it's the exact same picture, and it was so cool. And so, but as I'm standing at that moment, again, not at the top of the mountain, I don't know what this thought, like the flood of not emotions, but just like this thought came over me. How did I get here? And I don't mean like, well, I went over the creek and then, up the river and through the woods steps, and then I did the zigzag up for like 800 feet. And then I walked around and then, and I had to get here that way. Although, admittedly, I was so out of breath that I was thinking, how did I get here? Who am I?
What room am I staying in?
Look it up, Jim Gaffigan. What room am I staying in? You'll see it. And I was literally like, how did I get here? And so I was thinking back, and it was just one of those things where I like stood there. I mean, perfect weather. I don't know if you guys have ever had one of those experiences where it's just like you're in a place where you're not normally there. I'm not normally, 85% up a mountain. I'm not normally, like, I don't normally feel the breeze. I don't normally feel the sunlight, and I'm not normally like the perfect temperature. I don't know if anybody ever, if you ever notice that, like most of us are usually a little too hot, we're a little too cold, and this is like Goldilocks, and so I'm just feeling this stuff, and I'm thinking, how did I get here? And so I start thinking back to just the beginnings and our journey and all that stuff. And I went, how I got here was at the very beginning of the year, probably in January. We set an irrational goal to be one of Michael's top 3 affiliates. And I remember telling you, Mark, like, I get it. That might not be the best use of our time in the short run financially. We could probably do better things to make more money in that period of time. But I wanted it. And I wanted it for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to be there at Blackberry Farm. I wanted to hang out. I knew Jeff was going to be there. I knew Jeff Walker was going to be one of the top 3 because he's always one of the top 3. And I figured it might be, Pat Flynn or Ryan Levesque possibly would be the other, the other 2, one of the other 2. And it's irrational, or as Jeff Walker would say, word of the year, unreasonable. It's unreasonable for me to be there with any of those guys based on where we're at in our journey. It turned out that Pat was one of the top 3, but he couldn't make it. So Michael and his team invited Amy Porterfield, which was, just as awesome. And because I'm a huge fan of hers. And so it was unreasonable. We set that goal and we pointed to it for the whole year. So that was number 1, is I wanted to be there with them. Number 2, I just wanted to prove that we could do it. I wanted to prove to myself, and I wanted to prove to, I think it really was just to myself. I didn't really want to prove to anybody else. I didn't really have anybody else to prove anything to. I just wanted to prove to myself that we could do that, because we had finished years ago. We had finished 5th, and then we finished 4th, and we were always so freaking close. I was like, no, we are going to finish top 3. And so the mountaintop experience was just the realization of, we set a ridiculously ambitious goal. Hey, Jim, and we achieved it. And we achieved it. And it was just like, this kind of sounds woo-woo, guys. I realize that, but I don't have many moments like this. I truly don't. I wish I did, where, it was almost like the scene out of a movie where I sat there at the top of the mountain. And I remember my arms just fell down like this. And the wind was perfect. And I received it. I'm not one of those people who typically receives things. Like my favorite 2 words are what's next. What's next? What's next? All right, great. We did that. Like even today, like boom, yesterday we just finished, hey Dell, we just finished our best affiliate promotion ever. We're going to talk about that on the Facebook Live next week. We just capped off our best affiliate promotion. You know what? I celebrated for what we did? We went to breakfast as a family this morning, and I'm like, what's next? What's next? That was the entire celebration. But in this moment on that mountain, I went like this, and I breathed deeply, and the air was cleaner. I'm in the Great Smoky Mountains, so of course the air is cleaner. It's ironic because they're not smoky at all. It's like Dumb and Dumber, man. I thought the Rocky Mountains would be a whole lot rockier than this. Anyway, and I'm just like that, and I remember going, you know what? We did it. So that was my mountaintop experience.
Nice, I like it. So. I had the thought when you mentioned Dumb and Dumber. It's like, okay, what's the next pop culture reference going to be on this? And it's got to be a Brian Regan something. I'm not sure what.
It has to. Probably does.
It's going to be. No, and it was so cool. And we can get more into this. And this is where I go off the rails before we even start with the questions. So you're welcome for adding the questions that aren't going to be the right ones. But you talk about how did I get here? And we set this goal. But I know from conversations with you. And I know also, Matt, from conversations that we've had in a room with Jeff Walker, that Jeff will see this at some point. You were pretty dang excited to be hanging out with Jeff Walker. And Michael Hyatt, and Michael's been a client and him and your friends, but it's still, these three are people that you look up to and you have for a long time. So what is what's I don't even know how to ask this question, but how do you go from being kind of a fanboy at times to realizing you're in the same room with these people? You've earned the right to be in the room with these people, and that you have things of value to add to them. Because I remember some conversations you and I had where there was different things that you told Jeff, you know, and gave feedback and you were able to do so. So what was that dynamic like, and how did that did it change throughout the week, or, you know, was there things they did that made you feel more comfortable, or, I mean, just what was that dynamic?
I think a lot of my background has a lot to do with being comfortable with that. Like, I grew up in Nashville. I grew up in the two places I lived for a good part of my life were just outside of Atlanta and just outside of Nashville. And when we lived outside of Atlanta, the golf course my dad ran was where all the athletes played. So it was like nothing. We always had seats front row, third baseline, like talking to the players. And my dad played with the players. It was nothing for my dad. I mean, I've played with, you know, music, Garth Brooks' manager. You know, I've played with the guys from REM, not Michael Stipes. I've actually never met Michael. But was it Mike Mills and Bill Berry, I think, were the two that we played with at a golf course that's like the 7th ranked golf course in the world. And so I will say, and I say none of that to brag. I say that to say, like, having that as my background, growing up at a golf course where it's like me and then Clint Black and then the head coach for the Tennessee Titans, and they're just guys. Definitely contributes to the fact that I'm able to, like, not be like, you know, internally I'm like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Clint Black and Jeff Fisher. You know, internally I'm like, we go out in the middle of the golf course one day, me and my dad, and I'm literally, I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, I'm playing golf with Vince Gill. Like, and it was, and you know, the funniest thing, just side note, he is like the single most normal person I've ever met in my life. He's actually a bit of a dork. Just as a side note. And it was so it became one of those things where, like, internally I'm like, oh, and I'm like, we didn't have smartphones back then, or I'd been like, selfie, you know, look, mom, because my mom is like the biggest Vince Gill fan in the world. And so, and I was like, hey, can I get like a signed picture for my mom, you know, and stuff like that internally. But I'm like freaking out, but I had to learn how to manage that. And so I think having that practice for, you know, 15, 20 years contributes to the ability to function and not come across like a dork. But you're right. Like, I can come on. I love this. That's why I was nervous to do this, because it's like, there's the side of me that's like, yeah, I was hanging out with Jeff Walker, Amy Porterfield, Michael Hyatt. And I say it like that, but you know, the backstory, which is like, you know, and then what was it like? Jeff Walker touched me, you know, not in an appropriate way, but, you know, did you see, he said my name? And so there is that aspect of it. And I totally forget the question. Like, how do you function?
Yeah. What was the dynamic like? And did it change throughout the week where, I mean, did you go in knowing that you were going to be able to provide a ton of value for these people, or did it kind of grow into as the week went on?
I would love to say that no, and I discovered something, and I found my superpower Tuesday afternoon. I knew I would. I think it's, you know, I think just because of the people that we've worked with, you know, I mean, you work with somebody like Kevin Harrington, who's half a billionaire, and, you know, has had all the success he has. And when I can sit at a table with him and go just boom, 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 and contribute to him, and he's going, whoa, I figure I can probably do that with, you know, other people. And so I think experience helps. But at the same time, I'll just, you know, again, this being 1,000,000% honest, there is that moment where when I say something and he goes, huh, that's a good idea. I go inside, I'm like, yes. So yeah, there is that moment.
I mean, because, you know, and there's a couple of things that I made note of as I was listening through the episodes preparing for this. You know, one was you made the comment to them that you felt like a wiener in a steakhouse.
I did.
And so there is that. Oh my gosh, these guys are super, super successful. And you even made that comment, like they are way more successful than you are. And I mean, that's, you know, and I love which episode is it? It's like comparisons and something. I don't remember. On
comparisons and insecurity. Yes. And I share the two quotes that you know, if you guys have followed us for a while, you know that John Acuff says, never compare your beginning to someone else's middle or end.
Wasn't that Stephen Furtick?
No. Stephen Furtick says the reason we and I'm going to butcher this by a couple of words. The reason we struggle And maybe that is John Aiken. No, the reason we struggle with insecurity, Stephen Furtick says, the reason we struggle with insecurity is because we compare our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel.
That's right.
And so that's the day. And we talked about this the last day at lunch or at breakfast, with Michael and Jeff. Amy had already left. And, our spouses are there too. And they're contributing a lot. And it was really interesting to get their perspective because they're not like in social media. They're not doing social media for business.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to get their perspectives because I've never really been that big on social media. I don't spend a lot of time and I don't really follow anybody that I don't know on some level. And I only follow, about 12 people and I kind of know they're behind the scenes anyway. So I'm not seeing their highlight reel and going, golly, why is my life not as good as theirs? You compare anybody's highlight reel. You compare, let's just find like the most success. You compare Bill Gates behind the scenes to somebody with 1,000 Twitter followers highlight reel. And that highlight reel is going to be better than Bill Gates behind the scene because guess what? Gosh, I don't know how to say this without just being totally crass. Guess what? Bill Gates gets diarrhea too. How else? I don't know how else to say that. Bill Gates I think he has kids. Bill
Gates
had
first,
kids
folks.
that were streaming, right? Bill Gates, like everybody, you know what? Your kids aren't perfect and your kids do stupid stuff. And sometimes it's funny and sometimes it makes you want to pull your, clearly Mark had more of these than me. But like in all seriousness, that's life. We don't post that crap on Instagram. Yep. Most people don't. Most people, at least in our business, don't get on Instagram and post about the fact that it's like, post about the fact that, their webinar broke and this or that, and that they were ready to, 6 hours ago, they were ready to quit on their online business. Nobody posts that on Instagram.
Yeah.
They post on Instagram, getting ready to go live for my webinar. Look how amazing my setup is. That's what they post. So we look at that and go, wow, they have a better setup than me. Wow, they have, better live streaming technology. You're seeing the highlights.
Yeah.
You're seeing you're seeing 30 seconds out of their entire freaking day and judging your 23 hours, 59 minutes and 30 seconds by that. So yeah, that was, those are two quotes that I've lived by.
I love what Tammy said. And she said, how are you defining success?
Yeah.
And then she said, I think we're all successful just being here. We each are special or are special in different ways. And I think, that's exactly it. But, from the conversations I had with you, I think it's just, it's that tension, of, they're far along, knowing that they're farther along, knowing that they've been in business longer, knowing they've had more life experience, all these things, and being okay with, I'm not quite there yet, but also that tension of that's where I want to be, and how do I get to that point and what can I learn from them? And so I think that, as I was thinking about that, that's kind of what I was thinking through is the fact that, I think it's good for us to remember that we're not where other people are and we haven't had the experiences they've had. But at the same time, I think it's also good that we look at that and say, oh my gosh, I do want to be where they're at. I do want to have that kind of business, or I do want to be able to do those sorts of things because that's what, at least for me, motivates me. And it helps me to want to get to those points. So a super cool experience there. The next thing, Matt, I wanted to ask you about is, and you told me this story before I even heard it on the podcast, but this conversation that you guys had about trauma. And the reason I wanted to talk to you about this is because this led to you having a breakthrough that honestly, I think just about since I started working with you, I've been pushing you to do, and you haven't been doing it. And it was always like, I look at it now and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but it seems like the reasons that you told me that you weren't doing it were like symptoms more than the reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you realize that. And what it was, we've been talking about for quite a while. It's like, man, Matt, we got to hire somebody. Like we can't do all this. And you talk in the episode, it's called "Is Past Trauma Holding You Back?" and go listen to it. Matt, you can give a quick overview of the whole thing, but listen to that whole story, because the background of what happened while you're at Blackberry and how this came up and what you realized. And then you talk about it again in one of the later episodes. And I can't remember which one it was, where Jeff or Amy talked about how, shoot, when she was 25, she would have done the same thing you did, but
yeah, it ties in with what Chad said about you.
So let's talk about that. Yeah. No, let's talk about what Chad.
The nice things Chad said about me. I don't want to hear about your crap.
Matt, can we spend 20 minutes talking about all the nice things that were said about me while you were at Blackberry? I was like, no, it only takes.
I've already shared all one of them with you.
It'll only take 15 seconds. Don't worry.
Okay, so this was the first night. And again, if you guys have listened to the episode, or if you haven't, so some of this will be new. Some of this will be like a little bit of a refresher, but make sure you guys go listen to all 12 episodes. Mark will drop the link. So we're sitting there the first night, and just to give you guys a bit of perspective, where we had dinner the first night is where we had dinner the first night when I went, a few years ago. It's called the Tack Room. Or no, maybe that was the last night. I forget what it's called. It's the Cellar Room. That's right. It's right by this wine cellar that, no exaggeration, this wine cellar has like tens of millions of dollars worth of wine. It is like insane. It is like unreal. And it's just this really cool setting, and it's super quiet, and there's just one table. And Michael and Gail are famous for this, and other people have taken it from them. We're taking it from them as well. And it's called the one conversation rule. And so what they will do is they'll go around, and everyone will, there'll be a question, and everybody will say something. And then we might talk about it, but we're all talking about that one conversation. If when you get a table with anything more than about 8 people, what inevitably happens? 4 people have one conversation, 4 people have another. 6 people are 4, 4, and 4. And then the worst part is when there's 10 and it's like 2 and 2 on either side, and you're in the middle, and you do this. Don't you play conversation ping pong? And I hate being that person.
Or just like stare at the person across from you. It's like, which conversation do we listen
to? And so you get like these bits and pieces. I know you guys have been there, right? You've been there in life. So this one conversation rule. And so we go around and we share kind of like a big win from the past year. And Megan, she's talked about this publicly. In fact, she talked about it on their most recent podcast that she did with her dad, Michael Hyatt. Megan talked about how she told this story about how, like 20 years ago, something like that, she had this experience where a friend was supposed to speak and had like something go wrong, and she ran off stage or ran to the bathroom, and Megan went with her, and it was a traumatic experience, and she's been terrified of speaking. And I'm talking like this visceral, like fear, like an abject fear, not, oh, I might embarrass myself and I'm a little bit nervous. I've experienced that.
Right.
Like 17, 18 years ago, I ran, when I ran for office a couple of times, I remember my routine was about a half hour before we went on stage, I took a shot of Pepto-Bismol. And I knew people who half hour before they went on stage took a shot of whiskey, but I didn't. I took Pepto-Bismol to settle my stomach, and eventually I just got used to it, and it was easy. But she talked about this pain, this fear of speaking, and how it had held her back. And what it was the trauma from when she was younger was coming back to haunt her and to hold her back. And I went, and it hit me the next day at lunch. It didn't hit me that night. And I went, holy crap. What's holding me back is trauma from more than 10 years ago. So the story is, when I was 25, we started, actually I was 24. We started a company with $5,000, and it was the prototypical startup, and we grew. And we grew, and we grew, and we grew. I was 20, maybe not even 27 yet. I was 26 and a half, 27, something in that area. We had 50 employees. We ended up with 52 at our peak, doing close to $18 million a year in revenue. I had literally the corner office. There were 3 of us, that started it. And You know, I was the COO. I was
So
smart.
who had the fourth corner office then? I mean, assuming you're in a square building, or unless it was a triangle.
Actually, funny, it was L-shaped.
Oh, okay.
The fourth corner office was an architect firm. And good question though. Good question.
Carry on.
Way to think through there.
That's right.
And you know, so I mean, I had the corner office. I had all the trappings, and I kind of thought I was a badass. And I walked like it, I talked like it, and I treated other people like it. And that was not sustainable. And I was burning out. And I knew that I was a terrible leader, but I really didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to do it. And so rather than go get a coach and just, try to work through it, I quit on it. I burned out and gave up on it. And then, long story short is that I knew that I was a terrible leader, and I was scared now when I'm in a position to scale more rapidly and to bring on people. I was scared. It was just flat out, I was scared. And so I let that hold me back. And being there, like acknowledging that's the thing about any type of fear. You can't get through a fear if you don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times we have fears. We don't actually know that we have a fear. We don't know that that's the thing. It's just that we think, oh, whatever, I want to have a small company. That was the story I told. The funny thing about any type of fear is you can make up a story that basically
insulates you from that fear.
It insulates you. You can make up a story. So my story is I want to stay small. I've had a big company. I didn't really like it. I loved it. I just sucked at it. And so that was the story. And so it held me back. And then realizing it at lunch that day and talking it through with the other people. And I mean, to a man, like Jeff just looked at me. He's like, dude, how old were you? Like, he was like, what were you guys doing at age 27? How many of you were running $18 million a year business? How many of you had a team of almost 20 people reporting to you at the age of 27? And like everybody there was like, not me. I didn't have that. So, okay, how about giving yourself some grace? You've acknowledged the fear. How about you? And then to tie this into to you, Mark, and to the story about Chad Cannon, because we did an open loop on an open loop there. We actually, I don't know if you guys caught that. We did an open loop about an open loop, which is like next level. And so we're sitting there and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't know how we succeeded and how we hired people. And he's like, you hired Mark, didn't you? I was like, oh, yeah. He's like, and he's a rock star. And I'm like, thank you. And I realized like, okay, we got it right once.
Do you see how Matt took credit for me being a rock star? That's impressive. That's leadership right there.
And so, yeah, but I was thanking him because, we recognized that.
Right.
Because admittedly, I know you won't take offense to this. When we hired you, you were a lump of coal in this world. Okay.
I mean, I thought you would have just said like you had the potential to be a rock star. I didn't know we were going to go to like inanimate objects that are in the ground, but okay. All right.
You were a petrified turd. No, I'm just kidding. No, but you were
a dinosaur turd fossil.
Time and and whatnot. I mean, there was a diamond in there, is what I'm saying. And I again, credit to us. This is the point of this: is we recognize that. Like I knew it. Like it wasn't one of those things where I heard you and went, I'm like 50-50. This might work. I'm like, you know what? I know this is going to work. Might take a year. Might take whatever, but I know it's going to work. So that acknowledging that trauma and it was, yeah.
Well, I mean, when you told me that story, I started thinking back to that. And I remember literally guys, we have had this conversation. I mean, I've worked for you, Matt. Let's see. We've worked together in July. I think it's 4 years. So for at least the last 2 years, like once a month or so, I'm like, Matt, we got to hire somebody. Like we have, like, I am at wit's end. I can't do anymore. You know, we have all this
Mm-hmm.
we want to do and we just can't do it. And every time, like, no joke, when Matt says his comment was, you know, I just don't want a big company. That's what you told me over and over again. It's like, look, I don't want to have employees. I just want to have contractors. I don't want to have many of those. And as you were talking just now, Matt, I started thinking back to everything, and there's more clues to this than I even realized. I mean, if you think about your first blog, what did you talk about? You talked about leadership and being a good leader. And now I look at that and it's like, that's you. And I don't even know that you thought of it this way, but it's like, that was you trying to work through that and realize, you know, and convince yourself that I know how to be a good leader. I know how to do this. I can do this. But I mean, to me, and I sent a text to somebody and then I asked if I could share this and I haven't heard back yet. Oh no, he just texted me and said that I could share it. So I'm going to share it now. Okay. Literally at 11:34. So 3 minutes ago. So I thought it was interesting, Matt. You shared this story. You released this podcast episode. And while we were doing this, we were getting ready to hire somebody full time. And I don't know if you want to say who it was or not, but we offered.
That was a pause, like you were waiting for me to answer that.
No, I was trying to think the best way to say this. You offered the position and you said, hey, we'd love to have you join us full time. And they responded back with an audio message and said, I just listened to your episode on trauma. And I'm asking myself why I'm struggling to have this, to make this decision. He's like, I know it's good. I know it's going to help my family. Why is it? And he goes into this whole conversation about how he had trauma because he was barely able to feed his family at one point and he didn't have enough money and he was so worried about getting back there. And so I thought it was interesting that by you having this trauma, it kept you from hiring somebody. And it kept you from hiring. It kept you from wanting to grow. And now finding out what that trauma was and sharing that story, you helped somebody else get through the trauma that they had, that they didn't realize they had. And now they're taking a step forward with their family and with their career and with their job and what they're doing. And like, it's just this whole like circle of when you realize what that trauma is. And when I say trauma, Matt, I think it's important for us to say, like, this doesn't have to be some major life-changing,
this wasn't
end
like
of the world thing, but
abuse or something,
right?
Like that. Those are, I will admit, those are different level. And I don't even really want to go there because I can't relate to that. Admittedly, I haven't had anything. I've had something in my childhood that was close that I won't get into right now. I'm not talking about that kind of trauma. Like, this is a different thing, just to be clear about trauma. But
when you say trauma, I mean, you're talking about anything that's holding you back. And I think we all have that. I mean, we all have something that happened or some experience or some thought that we had or some movie we watched or some experience that a friend had that affects the way we look at life and affects the way we do things and affects how we insulate ourselves from it. And I can tell you that, you know, I've seen the change. You know, I've seen the change in you and just the things that we talk about and how what we're planning and how we're going to do it and all of these things once you made that discovery. So, I mean, the long form question at the end of that is, you know, how has that affected you as a leader? I mean, specifically because yours was about being a leader, but how has that affected you as a leader and how has it affected your business? You know, I mean, this has been what?
There's something you touched on. I don't want to forget to say this. I think it's an important message for somebody today. What you just said about Robbie, who is will be, you know, coming onto our team, and that audio message. And I'm not, someday maybe I'll get a chance to play that audio message. We'll have to ask him. He said how an episode that I recorded helped him in such a profound way. And I don't say that to brag. I say it to say that everyone has a message like that. It's really just a matter of sharing it. And Mark, I know you won't forget it, but what Carrie, oh my gosh, what is her last name? Not Green. Gosh, you know who I'm thinking of? Spoke at Tribe years ago. I mean, she's from Texas. We know each other. Just can't think of her last name. What? No, not it's a female.
Oh,
Barefoot, the Barefoot executive. Oh my gosh, why can't I not think of her last name?
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy that I can't? It'll come to us. Carrie Wilkerson. Okay.
Yes.
So Carrie Wilkerson talked about how if you have a message for the world, if you have knowledge, if you have information for the world, and you don't share it, She calls it information hoarding. And in that, it's like, and you could argue that it's no, Matt, that's not the same, but isn't it for at least one person?
Yeah.
If you have the cure for cancer, let's just even say a specific type of cancer, you have the cure for breast cancer, and you don't share it, I think you're a bad human being.
Well, let's just go there. Yeah.
That you're hoarding this cure, like, because, well, there's risk. There's this, and, I don't know, whatever. And so I shared that, and then it helped somebody else in that amazing way who now, like he said in the message, essentially, that podcast episode, that, for the record, again, in case you think it's a technology thing, because I know so many people do, I recorded on a smartphone with this windscreen over the thing just to keep around some of the background information or background noise. And
I was going to say, I think the background information was actually important in that podcast episode, just so you know.
I recorded this podcast episode, just me talking into a smartphone, uploaded to a thing. We pay $5 a month. Actually, pay $15 a month for hosting. You don't need to pay $15. You can pay $5. We pay $15 because we get advanced stats. You don't need those. So for $5 and a smartphone and 20 minutes of my time, we changed a family tree. Because you have a dad now that will get to stay home and work and be with his family more. You have a dad now who does not have to go to work when somebody else says to go to work. I'll tell him when to go to work sometime. There are times of the year, roughly 8 weeks out of the year, where you kind of have to be available. But for the most part, Martin knows this. Hey, I'm going to leave today from 1 to 5. Do you care? Nope. I'm going to send an email to you tonight. Okay. Don't care. There
are times that I can be doing a Facebook Live on the other side of the state because my daughter's at a horse show.
There you go. And like, ain't that just cool that you guys, we all have a message, like some sort of a message that we just put out there, and then family trees are changed. Like, people that never listened to that message, his kids haven't listened to it. Their lives will never be the same. My life will never be the same because of a podcast that I was listening to in the Dallas airport with an author that I love, Andy Andrews. And he had this guy on that I'd never heard of named Michael Hyatt. And I'm on that, like the tram that takes you from we're coming from Austin, where I was away from my family. For the record, it was the second to last time I was ever away from my family. For business, at least. I've gone away from my kids with my wife, clearly, but that was intentional. I flew in from Austin to Dallas. I'm in the little tram that's taking me to the next concourse, and I'm listening to this guy named Michael Hyatt talk about this book called Platform. Fast forward a year and a half, 2 years later, I get to hire Mark, which I know completely changed his family. Mark shared his story, working like 70 hours a week, and he went to an office every day, 5 days a week. But that was after traveling a bunch and being away from but he worked when somebody else.
That was after having a really crappy job. Yeah.
Yeah. And so not only did we change his, but even just in our family, that like a year and a half, fast forward a year and a half, 2 years later, my kids don't know what it's like. Actually, my daughter does, vaguely. She doesn't remember it, I don't think. They don't know what it's like for me not to work from home. They don't know what it's like for me not to be there 357 days out of the year when they wake up. Mm-hmm. They don't know what it's like for me to completely miss their bedtime, other than probably 5 times a year. Well, actually 15 times a year, probably with travel, with Tara and I leaving and stuff, which parents should do that, by the way. They don't know what it's like. They don't know what it's like to not be able to see daddy all day. They don't know what it's like for me. I'm not bragging, I've never missed a soccer practice. I've never missed a soccer game. I've never missed just about anything of any consequence. I've never even missed a haircut for our son. I've missed one of our daughters. Like things like that. I'm there for those things because of a podcast. I mean, that blows my mind to even think about it. And that's the kind of power that you guys have. You guys have the same power to completely transform lives with your message. So don't be shy in sharing it, because if you're shy in sharing it, no one will ever hear that. Michael Hyatt could have kept all that information to himself. He never had to write a book. I don't know what I would be doing today. I can tell you it probably wouldn't be this, though.
Yeah. I love Gwen's comment. I had it up on the screen a second ago, but this message of information hoarding is hitting me. I've been scolded many times about not sharing my story about healing pain and fatigue and migraines. So I'm feeling the prod again with this conversation. And that's what it is. I mean,
be prodded.
The people, consider yourself prodded. That's kind of a weird thing to say. Anyways, but I mean, that's the things that people identify with. Those are the things that attract people to you, is when you're real, when you share those stories. And it's just like you said, man, I mean, how amazing. And that was the cool thing when I was thinking about it this morning. It's just like, wow, this thing's come full circle of you realizing, the struggles and the trial and the trauma that you had, which kept you from wanting to hire people. And now you find and figure out what that is, because you had this awesome opportunity to go to Blackberry. And then because of that, somebody that you wanted to hire said yes, because you helped them recognize that trauma. And it's just, it's amazing. It's really cool. So we are, there's a million things I want to keep asking you about. So let's jump ahead.
Let's go with some questions.
We're going to run out of time here. It's interesting. So this is kind of a backstory. I don't even think you mentioned this in the podcast. So in the podcast episodes, you talk, I think there's like, let's see, there's 12 total episodes. I think in about 15 of those episodes, you talk about Brian Lee. But I'm like, I'm going through a review and I'm like, oh, there's another one. But,
I'm not a math whiz.
Point made. Thank you. I don't think you mentioned this in the podcast, but I remember you telling me that when Michael said, hey, we're going to have this meeting with what's his title? What does Brian do? Is he like in charge of all of Blackberry? Okay. General manager of Blackberry Farm. And Michael had said that one of the sessions you guys were going to do was to meet with the general manager of Blackberry Farm and talk about customer service. And you told me, and I hope Brian doesn't hear this and get offended, but you told me that you initially were like, I don't really want to go. Like, I just want to
compliment to him what you're about to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Matt tells me, he's like, I really didn't want to go. Honestly, like I wanted to just I don't know if you want to hang out at the cottage or go for a walk. I don't know what you want to do. But
let me tell the back. So this is Blackberry Farm. It's a getaway. I'm with my wife, Tara. We have amazing opportunities to, enjoy just the scenery and relax and be completely pampered. I mean, we didn't do anything. Like, it's one of those places. I mean, literally they will do everything for you.
Yeah.
And you got all these opportunities. And I grew up in the hospitality industry. Like I said, my dad ran golf courses. My stepmother for years, worked in the hotel business, high-end resorts. I know the hospitality industry. What could I possibly learn from this guy? And do I really want to take 2 hours to sit there and listen to a dude talk about customer service? Like, I got this down. I know customer service. I didn't know customer service. And so here's the only reason I went, because I was going to skip out of it. I was going to politely say, we were going to schedule something like a massage or, something. Well, then they kind of like forced our hand, because they scheduled the mastermind, the 2-hour mastermind with all of us right before that. So it wasn't like I could be like, yeah, we're going to have a late lunch. You just had lunch. We're going to eat more. We're going to stay here and eat dessert. I'm going to skip this for dessert. That's an insult. But the night before, when Michael mentioned it, Amy Porterfield goes, I'm so excited about this. I can't wait. And I'm like, I look at Tara and I'm like, I guess we have to go. I don't know if you guys if that mic picked it up. I'm like, yeah, we kind of have to. Right. And so I'm like, oh, whatever. So we went, and it was like the kid, like Tara was dragging me by the ear, like, you will go to listen, Brian Lee, like you will go to your auntie's house.
And you will like it, and you will have fun.
But we get there, and even like we're just meeting with the general manager, right? It's around a pond with a fire pit going. They've got everything you could possibly want: hot chocolate, coffee, bottled. On the seats, they've got these beautiful rocking chairs with blankets. It's a beautiful day. The sun's shining. The scenery is amazing. They've got, water spray. They've got like cookies and there's something about, I don't drink coffee. I drink tea. Blackberry Farm coffee is like the only coffee on earth I'll drink anymore. I refuse to drink Starbucks. Starbucks is like swill compared to Blackberry Farm coffee. I don't know what they do. So I'm like, I drank like 4 cups of coffee just because it tastes good. Then I'm like running laps around the pond. We were going streaking. No, I did that. But like, I was just hyped up, right? But we get there and I'm like, it's a customer service session, and dang, look how they're serving us. And everyone is there with the pens out and paper ready. And I'm observing, these legends going, writing notes. And there's a picture on the post that has all the episodes, and we pinned that comment. It's like, and it shows Jeff and some of the others kind of down the line. I think Megan took it, and it's just this, and it shows you like how people are listening and taking notes. And gosh, so as far as number one,
so hold on,
takeaway,
I haven't even asked you that yet. Quit looking at the doc.
Okay,
jeez. All right, so what I wanted to ask you, Matt, is but I think, before we even get into that, I think it's important for us to realize that you can learn something from everywhere. And I think, and you're not this way at all, Matt, but I know sometimes we can get to the point where it's like, I already know that. Like, I got that. But I think it's instructive that these people who are, leaders in their industries were willing to sit down and listen and found value in it. And we're willing to learn from that. And that's one of the things that I took away is, you weren't sure you wanted to go, but at the same time, because what you told me was that Amy basically said, I'm so excited to listen to this. Mm-hmm. And that's when you're like, oh, maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing. And I think there's something to be said for, we've talked about this before about the people that are really successful. They do certain things. And that's one of them. That's the one that I notice a lot, is they're always learning. They're always trying to understand something. The other one, and we've talked about this in relationship to affiliate promotions, is I've noticed that the top affiliates are the ones that are the most helpful. And those are two things that I've really noticed of really successful people. They're always learning, and they're always super helpful. They're always willing. And I know there's always the outlier, but by and large, the people that are very successful want to learn. They're willing to learn from anybody. They don't walk into a room and say, oh, Matt's business not nearly as big as mine, so I can't learn anything. But they're willing to learn from everybody, and they're always willing to help. So with that in mind, you, like I said, in 15 of the 12 episodes, you talked about Brian Lee in this session you had. And so what was the number one takeaway? You shared a ton of them, but now that you've had the benefit of 2 months, almost, what's the one thing that you keep coming back to that was just like, wow, that is going to change everything, or I didn't realize that?
It might actually be what you just said, in part. And it is that, like, I know that to be true intellectually, that you can learn from anyone. Some of the best learnings I've had for our business have been from people like Walt Disney, from Genghis Khan. I'm a history buff, as many of you know. So I love studying historical figures, and I love learning about things that are relevant to our business from the most unusual sources. And I think it was one of those things where, like, he wasn't an unusual source.
And now you're calling him weird. Jeez.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. I said it was almost like it was too close. So just learning from those, that was a big one. As far as biggest takeaway from that experience, I think it's something I didn't talk about in the podcast.
Oh, we're getting exclusive content here. Take notes, folks.
I hope so. All of this has been exclusive. You have to codify. As you know, that's kind of our word of the year for our business. We have, oh, I should have brought it down. I'm going to run up and grab something in a second. Actually, I want to show you guys this.
Oh, I was supposed to remind you, Matt, to make sure you had that.
Yeah, by the way, I didn't remember that. I asked you to remind
By the
me.
way, Matt, don't forget to have handy.
Guys, I've got something really, really cool to show you guys. I'm not going to grab the note that Michael wrote because it's upstairs on our bathroom mirror. It would take me way too long to get up there and get back down. But the other one's just up on our breakfast nook. So the biggest thing I got was that you have to codify the customer service experience. You have to codify the customer's experience and your expectations for your team for how to treat customers and how to serve customers. And you do have to give them the freedom to help people and to serve people. I think it's the Ritz-Carlton. I'm almost positive that has this legendary policy where any team member is allowed to spend up to, I think it's $1,000. It might only be $500 to make a customer happy. And so there are these stories where like a guy got into town and his luggage was lost and he had a speech the next day, and they literally brought a tailor to his room to get his measurements and, get the suit and and like things like that. There are stories like that, from I'm almost positive it's the Ritz. And so you can kind of apply those things. Like the reasons you have to have those rules, you have rules, but it's more about codifying the experience. And so they have this list. We would love to share them with you guys. I have to find it. I'm almost positive I know where it is, but this is it's basically their it's called their 15 or 12 or whatever. I don't know what it's called, but it's what they give all of their team members. And it's so good. I can't remember what it's called. But it's really powerful when you actually see it. I remember a bunch of them, and it actually just walks through. Like one of them is to know Blackberry Farm. No matter what department you work in there, whether you're on the farm and you're growing the onions, or you work on the maintenance team, or you work with the horses, or you're the one who, literally brings us the stuff we ask for every day, or comes in and starts the fire for us in the fireplace. Whoever you are, you have to know Blackberry Farm. They want you to know all the history so that when you walk into that room to bring us ginger beer or to light our fire, and I say, hey, that fence up there, what's that like? What's on the other side of that fence? They know the answer. They know the answer. Your team needs to know everything. That was one of the biggest takeaways that I got in that codifying. The other one, we covered this in the podcast. I'll just share these real quick because I know, Mark, these are big for you too. You don't have to be the best. You just have to be someone's favorite. One of the worst things that ever happened to Blackberry Farm was when I think it was the New Yorker did an article on them. They didn't want that. They already have enough guests, and they actually want. It used to be that 80% of their guests were repeat guests. Now it's down to 60%. And you get a different type of customer when that happens at a place like that. They wanted it to. They wanted to be who they are. They were Blackberry Farm. They're not a place that you just, they're not a place you just go to because you read an article about them in the New Yorker. They're a place that you go to because someone has been raving about them for a year. That's the type of place they are. And so the point was, I believe, and they have won awards. I believe they have the best food on earth. No doubt about it.
We're not sure about Mars, but on Earth, for definitely.
I mean, guys, it's unfreaking believable. Their farm eggs, like this is the thing, it's a slow cooked farm egg. It is literally hatched that morning, and then it's slow cooked, and it is just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just it's perfection. Like I've never enjoyed salad so much in my entire life as they're fresh. These are field greens that were picked that week. And with the dressings they make and the meats, oh my goodness, and the cheeses, Blackberry Farm cheese. It's literally Blackberry Farm cheese. Like you can't buy it. I think you can buy it there. Actually, you might be able to. It's unbelievable. Like I'm like, what cheese was that? And it's like some word I've never heard of. And it was unbelievable. Like I only know like 7 types of cheese, and this is like a different 5 types of cheese. And they're oh my gosh. I mean, just everything about that place. And I mean, that's not even getting in, like, I don't drink wine, but the wine's apparently unbelievable. And just everything, the desserts, the salads, the meat, the fish, the whatever, is just unreal. But they're not necessarily the best at everything. Like if you want, clearly if you want like an entertainment place, it's not an entertainment place. It's a relaxation place. So it's not the best, but it's a lot of people's favorites. It's my favorite place on earth. The other thing was,
can I just say before you go on, Matt, all of us on the West Coast are getting really annoyed with you talking about food right now because it's noon and you keep, oh, this was so good. Ah, this was so good. And I'm like, I need food.
We do shop at the farmer's market, by the way, Tammy. And I am getting ready to go eat lunch so I'm a late lunch person. I usually don't eat lunch till like 2:30. So about a half hour ago. And the other thing was this mindset shift. He said, and it was like connecting. This is the cool thing I love about this is like the way our minds work is we can read something or hear something a year ago and then hear something today and we connect the dots and we formulate a new idea. I've been learning a lot about nuclear energy recently. And one of the things I learned is like the formation of nuclear energy I believe we're within like 30 years of fusion energy, by the way. That's a whole different thing. And if you take what fusion is, or even fission, you take what fission was when we came up with that in like the 1940s, that was what the A-bomb was. It's like, it's the taking of an idea from here, and here and going, got it. And it all suddenly makes sense. And that was this, Brian Lee, the general manager at Blackberry Farm, said, to serve is a privilege. To serve is a privilege. And then I remembered something that Zig Ziglar always used to say, and that is to sell is a privilege, or to sell is to serve. So to serve is a privilege and to sell is to serve. Well, the inverse principle in math, if A plus B equals, C and, whatever, then what is it? How does it's like if A plus B equals C and C plus B equals A or something like that, then they all end up equaling each other. None of that may like my math teachers are like, gosh, we failed. Oh, because I'm sure my math teachers are watching this now. They were all old. They're dead. No worries. If to serve is a privilege and to sell is to serve, then to sell is a privilege. And when we have that mindset that I want to put you in this, thank you, Phil. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. If I to sell is to put you in a product that will serve you, then I'm serving. And that's why one of the things I love about affiliate marketing, for example, again, we're just coming off our best promo ever with Tribe, with Stu McLaren, is it was easy to promote Tribe because we know it will change people's lives. Phil joined, and we know Phil's life will never be the same. And it's so easy to market a course like that.
Yeah.
If marketing is hard, if selling is hard, it actually has nothing to do with your skills. It has to do with the product. I could not go out and in good conscience sell you the TV that I'm looking at this on right now at any price over $200. It's great for what I'm using it for. It is a total piece of crap for watching, like something on Netflix. Mark looks like he has been out in the sun for a month and a half straight on this screen. It's perfect because all I ever put up there are words and, and I just want to be able to see him. But he looks terrible on the screen. I look over here on my, MacBook Pro. Mark, you look great. Up here, you look like crap. So I would never sell, and it would be impossible for me to ever sell this television to you because I know it's a piece of crap. But I can sell you a MacBook Pro because I believe in them and I think they're amazing. And so it's a privilege to sell that to somebody. And I'm doing them a service. It's a privilege. And so that was a huge takeaway for me.
Do you want to go get your thing real quick?
Yes, I do. All
So
right.
we're getting close to the end here.
What are you going to talk about? Tell me what
Talk,
you're going to talk about so I don't just come in.
I can't tell you because it might be about you.
Transitive property. Thank you, Phil. What?
It might be about you, so I can't tell you what it's going to be about.
Turn the volume up then.
Did you see Gwen's comment? Gwen said your house must be huge because she could walk through a whole house in 17 seconds. And you said,
well, you live in California.
It's too far.
Anytime I talk to somebody in California, I'm like, that's the difference between Indiana and California is you go by, like you walk, like we used to play this game when we go out to Santa Clara. And, or like when we go to San Diego, we play the same game. And it's Guess the Zillow. And it's like you walk by, it's like the crappiest house. There's no grass. The parking lot has more weeds than it says live video pause. And we're back. Okay. One of the just everything, right? The roof has a hole in it. And it's it's $1 million house. And so, yeah, it's California. So I'm going to be back. I want to share this with guys. I want to share this with guys.
Our next conversation will be about what you're going to get. So don't jump in right away. No, I mean, so just a little background, guys. I mean, Matt has been talking about this trip since he got back. And to me, one of the things that's so important is to realize that we all have experiences like this, and we can all have experiences like this. Yes, this was a special thing. I mean, Blackberry Farm is very exclusive, and it's not every day that you get to spend time with Jeff Walker and Amy Porterfield and Michael Hyatt. But I mean, if we wanted to in our lives, it's not that hard to have these many takeaways from day-to-day life, whether it's a mastermind meeting, or it's a conversation in a Facebook group. If you're looking for takeaways, if you're looking for things to learn, you can find them. And I think that's the key. Matt went to this week thinking, I'm going to have some massive breakthroughs. I'm going to have some massive takeaways. And because Matt had those thoughts, well, he had those massive takeaways. So I think it's important, like we talked about, the most successful people are always looking to learn. They're always looking to find the things that will make their business better. And we can do that day by day. We can do that every single day in our lives. Matt, welcome back. I said some mean things about you, but I didn't.
I heard every word except for about 30 seconds.
Oh, now you know I'm not telling the truth. All right. So this ties into what Matt went to get, but I wanted you to tell us, Matt, a little bit about, okay, so you're at this event with these, very successful people that you've worked with, people that you've looked up to. And at one of the, I don't know if it was an actual meal, but one of the sessions,
the last dinner,
you were given very specific instructions to follow. And you either couldn't or wouldn't do it. So tell us what those instructions were. And then what happened after that?
So I tell you, I mentioned it earlier. And then maybe we'll do like one or two more questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. We'll wrap up here in about the next 12 minutes or so. So at dinner and the question was, what's your word of the year? What's your word for the year based on, this week or just in general?
So let's be clear. The question was, what was your word? No S's. Word. Okay, carry on.
And I remember Jeff, I mentioned earlier, he said unreasonable, because he said it's unreasonable to expect to be able to grow my business and take 10 weeks off. It's unreasonable to be able to do this trip, and be able to grow my business. So there's something in this box that actually represents my word of the year. And
words.
And Tara has one too. She had a different word. Her word was discovery, and that is that's her part of life right now is discovery, and I think it's super powerful. And so again, this was the last night, the dinner on the last night, and they said, "What's your word of the year?" And it came to me, and I just went. I said, I've always been one of those people who feels like signs and rules are suggestions, not orders. Like the sign on the covered bridge at Blackberry Farm says, "Don't cross." and I crossed it. And
because their customer service experience is for you to be happy, and that's
they
what
can't
makes
say
you happy,
no.
right?
No is not in their vocabulary. And so, mine was what if, and
No
what if,
hyphen, just what if.
what?
No hyphen. It wasn't one hyphenated
No,
word. It was
what if?
two words.
What if we made the hires that we need to make? What if I took all of next January off? What if I took all of every January off for a sabbatical and for us to travel and do the things that we want to do for the entire month of January? What if that, what does that make possible, and what needs to be possible for that to happen? We can't do a client launch or a product launch in January for that to happen by definition. What if we did all these things that we want to do, right? And it was more about what's possible, more about possibility and not limitations. So I said that. I said, I've got 2 words. Now, of course, it opened up the floodgates, and like 3 other people after that had 2 words as well.
See, all hell broke loose after you broke the rules. That's what happened.
So we get this in the mail, get a package, and I recognize the P.O. box. I know Michael's P.O. box. So I knew it was from him, and I knew they were sending something because they always do afterwards. My favorite blanket in our entire house is a Blackberry Farm blanket, that they sent us a couple of years ago. We have some other really cool Blackberry Farm stuff. I've still got like cookies. Their sorghum molasses cookies are, oh my gosh, they're the best things that ever come out of a box. I mean, they are just unbelievable. I'm down to my last ginger beer that they gave to us to bring here. And just as a side note, because it's like, this is a culinary experience, but they give you lunch when you leave. I've never had a sandwich. Like, I mean, I would never order a sandwich at a place like Blackberry Farm, because why would you order a sandwich when there's like all this amazing, gourmet food, right? Their turkey pimento sandwich, I almost brought me to tears. I had to pull over north of Knoxville. I was just that dadgum happy eating the sandwich in the car.
I feel like you should write a testimonial for them on Yelp.
Sandwiches.
I feel like you should write that testimonial on Yelp. I had their turkey pimento sandwich, and I was just so dadgum happy.
Pull over near Rocky Top, Tennessee. Literally, there's a place called Rocky Top, Tennessee, by the way. I'm not going to sing Rocky Top, even though my kids know all the words because they're good human beings. So we get this package, and it said, I keep opening it. I'm not ready yet. I noticed that Gail was writing down the word. Gail is Michael's wife, and I noticed she was writing it down. In fact, at one point, she asked me, she's like, what was your word again? And I said, it was 2 words. It was what if. She's like, oh yeah, that's right. And I noticed that. I'm like, and I remember going, but Gail's, she's one of those people. She's a meticulous person. I was like, she just likes taking notes, at fancy dinners. And we got this note, and it said, basically, we loved having you. We're rooting for you. We wanted you to have something to remember your word by. And Tara got a necklace with this. Hers says, of course, hers, word was just discovery. And I got this keychain, but this is it's a hand card. I'm going to show it to you. Hand stamped, very simple, but very meaningful, very powerful. I don't know if that'll show up. Let's see, without dying here. There we go. And it's just a really cool way to remind, like, it's one of those things, like I can literally pick this up and hold it and look at it, and something so simple, and instantly be transported back to everything I just shared with you guys. That moment on the mountaintop, receiving everything that we received. I can be transported back to that like that by looking at this. And I think that's one of the significances of mementos and things like that, and being reminded of that. Little tokens. I mean, there's some stickers on the back of my laptop. Some of them mean nothing. They're just like a sticker. This one right here, I can instantly, I think it's this one. I'm not sure which one I'm touching. I don't want to have the laptop go to sleep. But the and symbol, I can instantly be transported back to everything that happened when we went to, the first time Mark and I met. that entire week just floods me in a matter of seconds from that, just every time I see that sticker. And so it's pretty cool, pretty cool.
I think too, I mean, just extending that out with that conversation about what is your word. I've heard of people doing that. I've never done it until recently. And here's the reason why, because it was it was impactful for you because you told me about it. But I know it was impactful for Jeff because Jeff talked about it in our mastermind meeting, 3 weeks later, and had everybody in the room do the same conversation and talk about it and think about what their word was. And it was impactful for me. So I would encourage you. I mean, I always kind of thought, it's kind of corny, I'll be honest. But when I did it and I started asking myself, what is the one word? Because I'm a rule follower. Actually, I'm not. I'm a rule breaker too. So if I came up with 2, I would use it. But when I started thinking, what is my one word? Like, it's interesting how everything that you do, everything, like, it just allows you to distill down what's really important to me right now. What's really the thing that I value and that I'm focused on and that I care about. And it was so cool to see in that room, because obviously I wasn't at Blackberry, but to see in the room in the mastermind meeting, everybody's different words and how it really, like, you could tell the people that really focused on it, because there was one person that I don't think really focused on it. I won't talk about that. But
that's an inside story. That was just.
Can I tell this story? Can I tell that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So we're at lunch, and Jeff said, "I want you to write down your words, and then you're going to go to lunch. I want you to sit with people you don't know, and I want you to share your word or your words." I think he said 3 words. And so we're sitting there and everybody shares. And there was a lady at the table that was a rule follower.
Oh my goodness.
Big time. But there was this guy and he was just kind of a goofball. And quite honestly, it started to drive me nuts a little bit, but he really liked Washington apples. But he's sitting there and so this lady that's a rule follower is like, so, okay, so-and-so, what were your 3 words? And he's like, what? And she's like, your 3 words, what were they? We're supposed to share them. What were your words? And he's like, let me look. And he pulls out his laptop. He's like, yeah, I was typing. And he's looking at the screen, looking through his notes. And Matt and I are sitting on either side of him, and I can see his screen, and there's literally nothing on his screen. Nothing. It's a complete blank screen. And so he looks at it like he's reading through all of his notes, and he's like, no, I didn't get it.
Oh, man.
And so she will not let him go. Like, she's like, no, I like to do what we're asked to do. And we were asked to share our 3 words, and I would like to know what your 3 words are.
And you and I kind of glanced at each other. It's like, guys, literally, he's opening up, pretending like there's something on there. There's nothing on the screen. It is a blank Google Drive doc, I think, or like a blank Word doc. And he's like, yeah. And but the best part of it was that he scrolled forever. And I'm like, here's the thing. If you asked me what my 3 words were, I think I had to be like, what was my 3rd one?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't that impactful to me. First one was what if, and then my other one meant something to me. And the last one, it blows me away because I'm like, how do you not do this? But if you sat with this guy, it was awesome. I got to be honest. So it's the first time I've been to a conference, dead serious, and ever not liked somebody.
And to me, I think he was and he was really good at what he did, apparently, from what I hear. But I think he was just trying too hard. Like, to me, he was just really trying too hard. But yeah, it was just hilarious. I saw Pam ask what my words were. Ooh, I don't remember. Do you remember what my words were?
Your words? Either do I. I'm gonna go grab my notebook.
I wish I had my notebook from Launch Club. I don't have it with me. It's back home. So I will, Pam, I will look them up and tell you what they are if they are. I'm trying to remember what they were. Man, that makes me feel like a terrible person. They were really impactful.
This is actually my
really
launch.
Impactful.
I know one of them was.
So did you write down mine?
My Launch Club notebook.
Did you write down mine?
What?
You probably did. You're nice like that. Did you write down my words?
Write yours down.
Jim said, "Open up the Google Doc and check."
No. It's not on Mark's forehead.
Nope.
I remember. I'm trying to find the other one.
You remember 2 of yours or 2 of mine?
2 of mine. Again, why would I remember yours?
Probably wrote down mine. You probably did.
I remember why I remember 2 of them. and not the third one. I never had a third one.
Yeah, I remember you did say that.
I genuinely, I said these two are the only ones. So it was What If and Breakthrough.
See, he broke the rules again. He broke the rules again. He was told to do three.
He said have 3 words. And how many words did I have?
That is true. Valid point.
What If and Breakthrough.
Touche.
Hey, hang on. Pick that up and so yeah.
All right. So I mean, guys, as we're winding down here, I mean, if you have any questions from Matt about BlackBerry, about what he learned, then please ask them and we can share those. But I'm trying to think here, Matt.
You go to a blank page here and just be like,
right.
No.
If there's any other specific things. No. You kind of jumped into one thing, and maybe while people are asking any final questions.
Can I just say something real quick? Sorry, back to that story. The funniest part is it was the last part before we went to lunch. So
it's not like he forgot it from earlier. Yeah.
Maybe at the bottom of your notes or towards the bottom, like at the 90% mark, maybe you wrote some stuff down afterwards. You know? But like, why do you? No, it was like he was scrolling. It was like he was scrolling through a Kindle book. It was 392 pages long. He's like, no. And like I said,
man.
Mark and I are just going. Anyway,
it was awesome. And now I feel like I'm as bad as him. Yeah, Phil said, and Mark remembers none of them. No, I don't remember any of mine. I think no, I do. Okay, so here was my number one. I remember my number one word. My number one word was invest.
Yes, it was.
And because the big breakthrough for me this year has been that I've got to the point where I can actually invest.
This is powerful. Yeah.
In myself. I've always had this mindset, and I think a lot of people do. And I think it's just the way you're raised and stuff, but, and culture, but I've looked at like a course, or I've looked at things and I've seen it as a cost. And it's only in the last year or so that I've started realizing that those are investments. And I realized that I haven't been making the strides that I want in my life because I'm not willing to invest in myself. For example, I bought Best Year Ever last year. Now, let me be clear. I have used some of it before and whatnot, but I paid for it this year and I went through it. And that was a game changer for me. The other big one is I've wanted to get in better shape and I've wanted to lose weight for like 10 years. Like ever since my daughter was born, I gained like 30 pounds and I haven't lost it. And I don't know how that works, but that's the way it worked. This year, I invested in paying to go to a gym and paying to have a trainer. And, you know, I've dropped like 10% body fat, you know, and I've gained a ton of muscle. And so to me, that's been my big word. And I honestly feel I don't remember the last two because they weren't as impactful as that first one. But the first one was invest. It was in being willing to invest in myself and invest in my learning and my growth.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And I mean, it's not just money. It's time. Mm-hmm. It's attitude.
Yep.
It's being willing to. Sometimes it's just. I don't even know how to describe it, but I mean, that shift for me has come in phases. It's like, you know, okay, I'll invest 20% and then I'll invest 40 and 60 and 80. And now I feel like I'm at like mentally, I'm at probably like 90, you know, and then I would say in actions, I'm at about 85, you know? But it was just like, I mean, there's just things that we've invested in where it's just like, I know this is the right thing, so I'm going to do it. Again, sometimes it's time, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's sometimes it's in it. This kind of ties into all of them. It's a relationship, investing in a relationship. I know for me, I've talked about this in List Launch Academy, where I talk about there's this site. I don't even remember the site. I mean, it's just kind of sad. But I downloaded a lead magnet that was like something like 50, you know, texts that you can send to your wife. It's a swipe file. And one of the things that I invested in is it's 20 seconds a day. But I have to interrupt something that I'm doing to do this is that sometime between noon and 3 every day, I send a text to my wife, who's often just upstairs. But it's a message on her phone that tells her that I love her. And I will admit that for the longest time, I had to set a calendar reminder to remember to actually do that. but I invested in setting the calendar reminder. I took the time to do that. And sometimes it's hard because like, if I hadn't sent it, literally right before we got on this Facebook Live, then I wouldn't have been able, I might not have sent it because, I'm busy. Right. And it's just little things like that. Investing in relationships, which does sometimes mean spending money, because maybe it's a business relationship.
Right.
I will just tell you guys, you want to connect with influencers. It's not cheap. It's not expensive, but it's not cheap. It's not free. You're going to have to spend a lot of time, and some capital. You're going to have to spend a little bit of money. Send them something in the mail. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could just be a thank you note. But I'll tell you, there was a time in life, thankfully it's been a long time, where I had to agonize about whether or not I could buy a box of thank you notes and postage. But I did it because I knew that it would have a high ROI in the long run. And, it's just investing. So I love that word, Mark.
Robbie just joined us. He must have known we were talking about him.
Nice.
He actually did know we were talking about him because I texted him and asked if we could. Hi, Robbie.
Right.
Good to see you. No, guys, I mean, this was, to me, I think the cool thing about a really impactful experience, like Matt was saying earlier, when you talk about it, when you share it, it's impactful for other people. And I hope that this has been impactful for you. If you haven't, go listen to all those episodes. There's a lot of them. But luckily, Matt doesn't talk nearly as much on his podcast as he does on Facebook Live. So they're not as long. They're not as long. It doesn't take a long time to listen to, but there's some really, really good takeaways. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to, Matt, that I would have loved to have asked you about. One of them was why you like peanut butter and jelly so much, because you talk about that in one of the episodes. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And you're going to have to go listen to the episode and listen to the one about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So there's an open loop for you. But Matt McWilliams.
What episode I talked about peanut butter and jelly?
You don't remember that?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, you'll have to go listen to your episodes then. I'm not giving it away. People are going to have to go listen. I'm not telling them.
Gosh, I have to go listen to my own podcast now.
Right? But mattmcwilliams.com/Blackberry, and you can listen to all of those. If there's somebody else that you think would be interested, please share it with them. There's a lot of really good stuff. Some of the stuff we talked about today, some of the stuff we didn't get to today. But it was super impactful for Matt, but also for me, because he shared it with me, and for our business, and for the things that we're doing for you guys. And you'll see some of that coming as we continue going forward. We're definitely implementing a lot of this stuff. So anything you want to say at the end, Matt?
No, thank you, Mark. That was a fun interview, man. That was, we'll do this again, guys. I hope you guys like this. Gwen, Tammy, Nicole, Phil, Robbie, joined. I know Mark Ross, gosh, I know I'm forgetting like a dozen names there. All you guys are awesome. Thanks for the awesome comments. Let's see if I can find anybody else. Jim, yes.
Nicole, Jim, Dell, Kurt.
Dell,
I saw Kurt on for a few. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, well, guys, thank you so much. And we will see you again next Friday. We're going to cover,
yes,
we are going to talk about what ended up being our best affiliate promotion ever. I've actually got a podcast episode that just went live like an hour ago about what was our best affiliate promotion ever, and something crazy we did on the last day. Absolutely insane.
How's that for a open loop?
And you got to go listen to that. So go listen to that. Just make sure you subscribe, iTunes. We're on Spotify now. Make sure, however you listen to podcasts, you subscribe to the Affiliate Guy podcast and go listen to that newest episode. And then go listen to these 12 episodes as well. If you put you on there. And then make sure you join us next Friday, because we're going to talk about the new greatest affiliate promotion that we've ever had. It just ended yesterday. You guys know what it is. It was Stu McLaren's Tribe, but it was by far our best in terms of financial impact, which was awesome. So go check that out, and we'll see you then. We'll see you on the podcast. We'll see you on the blog. See you in the videos, all that fun stuff. Have an awesome weekend, guys. Thanks, Mark.
See you guys.